Welcome to episode 39, and Tiffany Butler from TBA Events joins the Riviera Firefly podcast. Her company is as an event organiser and also rather uniquely hosts treasure hunts. I can't wait to find out more about that. Well, Tiffany might not remember this, but I actually first met her back in January 2015 through Car Boot Valbonne, one of the Facebook groups down here in the Côte d'Azur. She was selling some bedside cabinets. Hope you don't mind me sharing this, Tiff. And I went along and I bought them from her. I'm sure it was at a very reasonable price because I was looking for an art project for my mum, who's over here, who's retired. And I thought she'd do a really good job remodelling that. And she did. And it kept her amused for hours. Well, our paths didn't formally cross again for, I think it was end of December 2017 when she joined a mastermind group that I set up for entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs looking to set their strategic objectives for 2018. So we met up, and in this mastermind, we were a group of 8, I think, altogether, similar size and similar minded businesses, getting together for support, nurture, accountability, and problem solving. If you are an auto entrepreneur or you run your own business, you don't have a boss. So that's a real plus of being down this route. But it also means that you can put off till whenever things that you don't really want to do. So with these masterminds, it gives you accountability, because the negative of not having a boss is that you might not get things done that you really should be doing. So masterminds are an incredibly important and powerful tool for people that work on their own. And it's also a moment for you to work on your business, not in it. And we're so busy fighting the day-to-day, answering emails, checking social media, that actually taking time away with other business-minded people and thinking about your business and how you want to solve certain issues. We call that hot seating, so it might be where I talk about a problem that I've been having, and then all the other business minds will help me solve that problem and give me advice that I can take or not take. That's obviously my choice as the business leader. Very, very powerful masterminds. Anyway, Tiff's been coming along to these, and I found her to be an incredible person. She's funny, she's very quick, she has a great gift actually to be able to summarise and to drill down on a point that someone's making so she can get clarity very quickly. And she does it in a way, and I just love this, it's her energy. She's one of life's radiators, not a drain. So anyway, if you're thinking about hosting an event or work for a company that wants to organise some teamwork, have a listen to this podcast. Because what I've found is recording these podcasts that they're a unique way to get to know the person behind the brand, the voice behind the .com, and of course full of ideas and tips for enjoying the Côte d'Azur, raising families, starting businesses, that kind of thing. And if you're not the decision maker in organising an event, perhaps it's your boss at work, forward them the link and they can listen to Tiff talk about how she set up TBA Events, and it will give them a real feel for how she works, how she operates. She's also a naturally pay it forward person and does this instinctively. I've seen it time and time again. I have to say, I really appreciate her for that, and it inspires me and those around us to do it more ourselves. As I said last time in our last episode, we need a community. We need to build up that village. And while Facebook is great for initial connections, it's through events. It's through book clubs, it's through activities that you really get to know people, and of course podcasts is that step in between. So without further ado, let's meet Tiff.
Having successfully launched 3 businesses, bilingual mum to 2 and entrepreneur Antonia Bowes-Brown has connected with thousands of people, both French and international, since moving to the French Riviera. These connections allow her to speak with successful local businesses and inspirational people about life here on the Côte d'Azur and share it with you. Welcome to the Riviera Firefly podcast with your host, entrepreneur, and my mum, Antonia Bowes-Brown.
Welcome to the Riviera Firefly podcast, Tiffany Butler from TBA Events. What does the A stand for?
Associates, or as we first designed it to be Tiffany Butler and Associates, or to be arranged.
To be arranged, because you are organising people's events for them.
That's right.
And I was having a quick look at your website earlier, and you've been doing this since 91.
Yes, I've been doing it a long time and all over the place. So I've done London for 10 years, and then we moved to Paris, and we were in Paris for 13 years, so I did some work in Paris and now down in the Côte d'Azur, so it's sort of all over London and France.
Global.
Well, I'd love to be. I'd absolutely love to be.
And so you're originally from Britain? Whereabouts are you from?
I'm from London. My mother was from Bradford and my father was from Hove, but they met at St Mary's, Paddington. They're both medical. And then we lived in Putney until I was about 11, then moved out to Surrey countryside. And so lived basically a Londoner. And
very similar stomping grounds. I grew up in Esher.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And lots of my friends were in Putney and Wimbledon and all around there. So
yeah.
Great place to grow up, actually.
Brilliant place. My sister went to Putney High School, and then when we moved out, I went to Guildford High School. So it was a sort of
I think we played hockey against you.
Oh, did you? What school were you?
Surbiton High.
Yes, definitely. Oh, not hockey. I played lacrosse. No,
okay.
I was a lacrosse girl. Yeah.
So, how was life growing back up in England? What's your early childhood memories from there?
I had a very privileged childhood. I was very lucky. I had 2 loving parents and a great sister, and my father's a doctor and my mother's a nurse, and we managed to have holidays where we sailed around the Mediterranean, we went skiing. It was a very privileged childhood, but at the same time, it was one where they gave me great values, which was the harder you work, the luckier you get, and there was nothing given for free. And, if you decided to bunk off school, you had to prove you had a temperature, and sticking the thermometer in a cup of tea doesn't really do it when your mother's a nurse and you've got a temperature of 108. So yes, they gave me really good grounding and really good values. Nothing is for free. You have to earn it, and you don't deserve anything. You have to earn everything that you get.
Which I guess you've carried on with kids at home.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've only got one son who's now at Kent University. And first year, and I miss him terribly, although I won't tell him that. But he comes back in a week, and it'll be 3.5 months since I've seen him. So it's quite a long time. But he's thriving. But again, we've taught him this mantra of, you've got to work hard in this world. And particularly with such a privileged place that we live, where there are the Grand Marque, the Bugattis and the super yachts and all that. It's very easy to have your head turned.
Yeah, sure.
And going to school in Nice and having friends in Monaco, you have to keep them grounded, because the millennials seem to think that they have a right to work, and not the sweeping statement, but we've absolutely buttoned that down. And first thing he said when he comes back is, I've got to go and get myself a job for the summer. So hopefully it's brushed off on him.
Well, I think if you put the seeds in place and then you water them, then you can reap it later, can't you?
Yeah.
So what were the early jobs then back in England? What kind of fun jobs have you had? You were asking me about mine.
I was. Well, I did everything from shop girl to waitress, as you do growing up. But then I went to university, and then I came out, and my first job was at an advertising agency, which I was very lucky because I'd been travelling. So I went to Australia for 9 months and came back and thought, I just want to travel some more. And then my father said, no, you've got to get a job, I'm not paying for it. And I had missed the milk round, the old-fashioned milk round through university, and I'd missed that. So I just wrote to every advertising agency in London. And one of them came back and said, I haven't got a job, but come and see me. And the first thing he said when I sat down was, there is no job. And at the end of the chat, he walked me to the lift and said, there is a job.
Wow.
So that's what I'm saying. It's about putting yourself forward and having a go and seeing what happens. And then that advertising agency, which was called Davis & Pierce, was bought by an agency called BMP. DDB Needham, as it became, and it was the number 1 creative agency in the world at the time. So I went from this tiny little agency to the biggest agency in the world through sheer luck.
And what were the kind of jobs that you were working on back in the day? What kind of tasks and projects were you doing?
In the clients? Yeah. I had a hell of a client base. I had everything from multiple sclerosis client, which was the most joyous client to work on. We did, you'd have to be in England to have seen this, but we did a very famous campaign called the Tear campaign, which was a black and white poster with a tear down the strip. Looked like somebody had vandalised it. That won many awards. I was an account director. I wasn't a creative, so I liaised with people. And we also did the Guardian ad, again a famous one, where a man in a bowler hat is walking, and the tale of a pile of bricks is about to fall on him, and the skinhead comes, and you think the skinhead's going to rob him, and he actually saves him. That was I was very privileged because I was working with some top creatives like John Webster and Larry Barker, who was just inspirational. So I loved that. It was very stressful, very high-powered, and it was at the end of the 80s. Yes, so
power suits.
Yes, it was all the power suits and the long lunches. So I had a blast, had an absolute blast.
And what made you move into events? Was that next? Or?
Yes, events was next actually, and it was. I decided I want to work for myself. I'd worked in advertising for 7 or 8 years, and I wanted to be my own boss. And I looked at the skills that I'd learnt, and they were organisational, creative, planning. You couldn't let anything slip. You had to be into the minutiae. And my husband actually worked in the city at the time, and he had a client who wanted to run a charity ball. So he said, "Will you do it?" So my first event was for 500 people. And I did and apparently I went grey when I said yes. And it was a huge success, and I did a circus theme, and I got a carousel in and did all this extraordinary stuff, which when you're younger you sort of don't think what could go wrong. You just think this will be a good idea, let's go for it.
So true.
And I was very flattered because David rang me up the next day and said my phone has been ringing off the hook with people saying how brilliant it was, and from there I got other work. So that was it.
So you've been doing TBA events since 1991.
Mm-hmm.
So you must have worked on so many different kinds of events, really different styles. Mm. What are the kind of ones that, typical, I guess? Are they weddings and corporate events?
Corporate events was my forte. That's what I specialised in London. And they were the ones that were a lot easier in some ways because there isn't an emotional attachment. When you have a wedding or a 50th or whatever, you have to take that into account, and the way you behave and you interact with the client is very different.
Yeah.
Because you want to, all clients want a successful event, and that's what we deliver. But when it's emotional, they're representing themselves. So a company is representing their corporate face, and that you can get from the strategic brief. But when you've got somebody who says it's my husband's 50th and all my friends are coming, then you have to make sure that it represents them and how they feel. And that's obviously with weddings, and that's more difficult, and that's much more of an emotional investment that I make, because I give them probably, I would say, more time. Because they might come up to me and say, I want to do this, and then literally everything's in place, and they go, I've changed my mind. And so you have to say, okay, why, firstly, and how can we help? And that's a lot different. But the corporate events were fantastic. I mean,
what's one that really sticks in your mind?
Oh, wow. There were two, actually. I won't make a long story short, but they were both for Volkswagen. I got in the privileged position of launching 2 Volkswagen cars in London. One was the Volkswagen Passat, and that we did at the Design Museum, because it was all about design. The whole strategy for the brief was about the car, was about design. And we did, at the time, the largest laser show and fireworks ever seen in Europe. So I had to ask the Royal Palace to close Tower Bridge. I had to ask to close City Airport for 6 minutes. So they gave me 6 minutes. And it was extraordinary.
Huge.
And there were 2,500 people came. I was interviewed. It was massive. People are lining Tower Bridge to watch this. But 2 things happened on that job. The first was that the night before we had to have a run through at 2 a.m. So we didn't want to give the game away. And we rowed the barges down to Silvertown. 2 youths, shall we say, rowed out and stole the equipment the night before. And thankfully a policeman spotted them running around with walkie-talkies, and we got it back. And the other thing was that the show had to be from 9 p.m. to 9:06 because, as I said, things were closed and had to be opened. And when you have a laser show, you have to have a screen of some sort. So it's either smoke or it's water. And it was windy. And the water screen kept blowing over. So I was on the bank and they were on the barge, and there was, 2 more minutes, Tiff, 2 more minutes. I'm going, we haven't got 2 more minutes. Please, can we go? And in the end, I just said go. And then the Mission Impossible theme came in, doom, 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 doom. And it was brilliant. So that was one. And the other one was I did another car launch. I did launch the Beetle at the Royal Agricultural Halls, and we flew in Cirque du Soleil, which was quite a big thing, and we had to build a stage, and we had them, how they go in the roofs and they just tumble down. They're extraordinary performers. We had cage dancers and we had all of this, but we had this stage that we built, and we got checked out, and 10 minutes before I have a crowd of 1,500 outside, the health and safety said no, can't do that. So that was quite stressful, but we fixed it. We fixed it.
I imagine every event is stressful in that there's always something that goes wrong, because you've got the unpredictable. I mean, you can do contingency planning and all that, but it must be very tough because you're really having to risk assess everything, every possible thing that can
all
go
the
wrong.
time, all the time, and you have to have a backup plan for a backup plan for a backup plan. And that's something my dad taught me. We always had a backup plan for everything. But it's also, it's thinking and anticipation, and that's the most important thing. Is you have to anticipate. Obviously, being an event planner, you're going to anticipate weather. It's a lot easier down here, but not always. You get the freak showers in summer, and you get those. But it's also anticipating, well, I've invited my grandmother. Well, that's great. Is she in a wheelchair? Do I have to have handicap access for this home? Or it can be, your staff don't turn up. What do you do then?
Which must be huge.
It's massive, and that's why you have to have the resources. But that's part of the fun. I would hate it if an event went really smoothly because I relish it. I get more stressed before the event in all the planning, but because we plan to the nth degree, that's why it works. That's why they always work.
Do you think it makes everyday living harder? And I say that because my job's risk assessment for the safety of kids. So I wonder if I over-plan in my real life because I'm thinking about plan B and backup. And
oh, yes, absolutely. And it's something that drives my husband nuts. I have a
Mine
plan
too,
for everything. I mean, he'll
really
sort of go,
back.
he's like, so smart. He'll be like, worry about it when it happens. I'm going, I can't. I have to have a plan. I have to have a plan. And I have a girlfriend, Nikki, who just says to me, live in the present, Tiffany, live in the present. I do, but I have to have a plan.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel safe. And I think if I feel safe, I'm calm, and then the clients are calm, or my friends are calm, or, whoever it is.
I think you can live in the present. I would say I don't like firefighting particularly.
No, I don't.
So I like to have thought ahead and have, like you say, the backups, so that you don't have an emergency to deal with. If something happens, you go, oh, I thought this might happen.
Yeah.
Here's the plan. But I think then you can really enjoy the event because you're not going to be totally rug pulled out from under you because you don't know what to do now because you haven't got a backup plan.
Absolutely. And it is all about the swan swimming and paddling furiously underneath.
Yeah.
I mean, one of these events we had head mics on. The whole team had head mics on, and we just found them hilarious because we kept forgetting to switch them off. So we would be turning around and we'd be saying, oh, for crying out loud, why isn't the Vocaloose getting the vodka to it? And somebody would say, I'm on it. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. And it was just hysterical. So you have to have fun. And I think that's what people enjoy working with us, is because we do it with a smile, and that's more or less our strapline, because otherwise our enthusiasm and passion doesn't come across for your fun. It's your fun that we want to put across.
So it's planning, it's fun, but then I guess it's contacts as well.
You
must have the great little Rolodex of contacts.
The little black book. And
globally.
And that's partly why I didn't start straight away when I got here. I got a job, first of all, because I didn't know anyone. We literally arrived not knowing a soul down to the south of France. And so I didn't feel confident restarting the business without my black book. And now I have some cracking suppliers. And
when did you move here?
4 years ago.
Okay, it's quite recently, yeah.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is.
So you're already in Paris. What made you come to France in the first place?
In France was a job from my husband, and in fact, we were very fortunate because he worked for the bourse, or actually worked for a finance company, working with the bourse, and they paid me a year's salary to close my business. So I came with a 2-year-old child and just had a ball, just lady of leisure for a while. So that's why we came to France.
And so then you moved down to the Côte d'Azur. So you're building up your little black book. And then when did you sort of launch over here? Well,
I really only relaunched about 6 months ago. And so that's why I've been networking furiously and talking to people. And I've been very fortunate getting work. It's been a slow build, but now it's getting traction, and people are hearing about me and knowing me and trusting me, because that's all it is. If people are going to give you your money, they've got to trust you. When I lived in Paris, I ran Paris treasure hunts, which were great fun. But that was a lot easier because Paris is a hub, and they often want an English-speaking or team-building activity, whereas it's not quite the same here. So we've, my husband and I have just sort of drawn together a Cannes treasure hunt, and that's
I saw that on your website. It looks really cool. So Nice, Antibes, Cannes and Monaco is the plan.
Yeah, that's the plan.
And so which one's ready to go now?
Cannes, and in fact I'm running one on Tuesday.
So how does it work?
It's very straightforward. In fact, it's really retro. You know, you see all these hunts with apps and we'll give you an iPad. And we are completely the reverse. We don't want you to use your phones. We get you to write things down. We get you used to an old-fashioned camera, which, you know, I had to actually sit and go, how does this work? Because we're all used to point and shoot on our phones. The reason we do that is because we then download the photos. So we need the SD card. And then we send those off, which we can't obviously take them off your phones. But also, we want people to stop and look up, look around, enjoy where you're at, not have your nose stuck in some kind of technology. So it's very simple. It's not expensive. It can be run with friends. It can be run with, you know, if you've got a big family gathering. But it gets people to walk around Cannes and enjoy.
What's the ideal number of people?
It can be anything. I mean, I ran Paris treasure hunts for up to 250 people. This one, particular one, is 20. Which is a nice number, but you could
a family visiting, or like they've just got here, just arrived, and they want to discover Cannes a bit?
I think you need a minimum, I would say, of 15. If I'm honest, because you need 3 teams of 5 because the other thing is people get incredibly competitive. You wouldn't believe it. I had one Paris treasure hunt where you all have to meet back and we mark it together, and that's where the fun is, because lots of heckling and lots of, you know, challenging of me and whoever else is running it, and it's really good fun. And one guy came, it was at a posh hotel in Paris, and his friend came running in one of these, you know, those luggage trolleys, you know, the gold sort of luggage trolleys, and he was on this, and they ran in pushing him, and he'd fallen over in the street, and we think he'd broken his ankle, and he was so competitive he wanted to do the marking. I was going, you have to go to hospital, and he was going, no, not until I see if we've won. So people do get ferociously competitive.
I think I'd be like that.
yeah, I think you might be.
Although I have a low pain threshold, so I don't know about that. I would want to win.
It's great fun. They are great fun, and they can. The thing is that they can be short as long as you want. So we've written it so it could be 3 hours, it could be half a day, it could be a day, or it can be an hour and a half.
Brilliant. So this is a really good thing for team building as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So companies that are here, the big companies and what have you, particularly as it's now springtime, isn't it, officially? Finally, we're getting, goodbye winter.
Yes.
We're done. What kind of other things are in line for 2018?
Well, I'm working also with a number of other wedding planners. So I'm doing some individual freelance work and working with a lot of venues too. So private villas and things that want to fill it for private dining, dining clubs, private venues. And also I'm going to London next month, April. And I've networked with quite a lot of ultra-high net worth concierges and dining clubs and people like that. So I'm hoping that they'll come over, because anything that I can bring to the Côte d'Azur is benefits the Côte d'Azur. So that's, you know, I want to...
It is such an amazing place. Where do you go and hang out when you're here? Where would you go?
I swim quite regularly at Nautipolis. But as far as exercise goes, I ski and I swim. But in terms of hanging out, I genuinely love Valbonne, not in the summer so much. But I do like it when it's about now, actually, where it's warm enough to sit outside, but it's not mobbed with tourists.
I do like the Friday market, even when it's mobbed.
So do I.
Because I feel like I'm on holiday.
Yes,
and you just
yes,
think,
absolutely.
I'm just on my way home from work or something.
But we feel like that anyway.
Yeah.
We just wake up and we go, wow, what a quality of life. The fact that literally 20 minutes away I can be on the beach walking the dogs, and an hour and a half away I can be skiing. And that is something that is very rare to find.
And it is about living in the present at that moment, because I think that if we're not going out and you stay at home and you're gardening and you're not getting out and seeing the Lemon Festival in Menton.
Yeah.
What other ones are coming up? There's the orange one in Barcelona coming up.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it's really brilliant.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to go to that.
It is.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And it's just, we got all this on our doorstep.
Exactly, and it's about, you know, listening to other people and saying, oh, I'm going to go off and see that. And also on the Facebook, where people said interested in going into an event. I go, oh, I didn't know that was on. So if you like the Red Bull Air Race, I can't wait to see that. Rolex Masters, I love tennis. So, you know, we'll go and see that when my sister comes across. So we're very fortunate with seeing a lot of events.
Yeah, so it's keeping an eye. That's a great tip, actually, keeping an eye on the Facebook groups. I'm seeing more and more events popping up. People are starting to get used to using it to promote things.
And also realising it's not threatening. If you put going, it doesn't mean you're committed to going.
Yeah, you can just put interested, can't you?
Exactly. But even if you're going, and then if you're going, it reminds you, you go, oh, I'd forgotten about that. So, yes, so in terms of hanging out, I think really just finding nice little restaurants, going, just literally getting yourself lost. Yeah, that's what I did when I first arrived in France. I stuck my son in the car and I just drove. And I just drove and found super little villages, and that's what we do here. Although he's big and strapping and 19, so probably not as happy with that.
What about meeting people? So you got here 4 years ago. What kind of tips have you got for meeting people?
Well, it is difficult because we genuinely knew no one. I mean, we didn't have... in fact, that's not true, and there is a little story behind it. I met people through the school, and I would really recommend, whatever school you're at, to actually join the PTA if there is one, arrange a careers day for them, help out with whatever charity event that they're going to, and you will meet other people. But when I left Maison Lafitte, I had a very good friend called Hilary who said, I've got a great friend down there. And I was very much of the type, I'm not going to ring up and say, hello, will you be my friend? I'm not that sort of person. And I met this girl, Jill, from school, because our sons went to the same school. And we got to know each other over 3 or 4 months. And I said to her, I'm never going to do this. And she said, who is it? I probably know them, because I've been here for so long. So I scrolled through my phone and I went, oh my God, it's you. And it was actually her that was the contact, and my contact had been the best man at their wedding. And it was just, 6 degrees. And so it often could be one person that connects you. But put yourself out there. Don't be shy. Get a job. There's so many seasonal jobs that you can work 3 hours a week if you want. Get involved, really. It won't come to you. You're going to have to find it.
And from a business perspective, there's lots of networking groups. What groups have you kind of been dipped into? Well,
I dipped into the Professional Women's Network, and there's also Internations, which I haven't joined. I think that's much younger and based in Nice. There's big clubs that you can join for membership fee. As far as networking, I talk to friends and I actually actively ask them. And you sort of say, do you know anybody who can help with my son getting a stage? Do you know anyone who knows a gardener? Do you know anyone? And it's amazing. People like to help. They like to give away resources and help. And I'm the same. So just ask people. People like to be needed. I think there has to be a slight barrier because I'm the professional here and they have to trust you.
We talked earlier offline about places to go and visit for walks. Was down on the Cap d'Antibes.
Mm-hmm.
Let's imagine you're down on your beach with your dogs bouncing around.
Yeah.
What book have you got in your bag?
Well, my favourite book is called A Bright Shining Lie, and it's by Neil Sheehan. And in fact, he was the one, the Pentagon Papers. He was the one behind that, Neil Sheehan, The Post it's called in America. But it was a book that Simon picked up in the airport donkeys years ago. It was Pulitzer Prize, and I read it first on holiday, and I couldn't wait for him to read it so we could talk about it. It's about Vietnam. It's about the history of Vietnam and a person's story. So it's sort of drama doc, if you see what I mean. But it is something that stays with you. It's fascinating. I've read it 3 times. It's a tome. And actually it's something that our son said, recommend a book to read, and we did. And he's got it on his Kindle or whatever, his tablet. And he said, I've read for half an hour and I've got less than 1%. So I said, read a book then you can tell.
Yeah.
But it's a fabulous book. I really recommend it.
Especially as we're coming up to the summer where, I don't know, you get more time, you feel, because you might go down on the beach.
I don't do chick lit, I'm afraid. I'm a crime girl as well.
Oh, really?
But I don't do, chick lit, really.
Well, since I joined a book club, which feels like you think it's a couple of years, and then you look at all the Facebook memories that come up, and it's like 7 or 8 years or something, and that really stopped me reading chick lit. I think once I had kids, I was reading chick lit because that was easy. You could pick it up, put it down.
Don't have much time, and you don't have to concentrate.
Didn't have much time, and didn't have much brain power.
No, absolutely, you can't focus.
No.
Yeah.
But I was really aware that it was getting too much. So the book club was a great way to read other things that I just would never have considered reading. It was really good.
Actually, it's funny you said about meeting people and things. Also start things yourselves. And times have changed. When I first went to Maison Lafitte, we didn't have a book club. We had a book exchange lunch. It was called The Bells. And where everybody bought 3 or 4 traditional books. Now people have everything downloaded, but I love the feel of books.
Yeah.
And so maybe if you want to meet people and you've met 2 or 3 ladies, just say, bring a few books, bring a plate, a quiche or a salad, and then all we did was chat about that, and then we would use it like a library, and we'd have somebody would write down who took what books, and you bring them back, and it was just like a learning library.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I think I did one of those years ago. Went to one.
Still got the books?
I like hard books, and I think they're coming back into fashion.
Well, Amazon's just opened its first bookstore, hasn't it?
Oh, really?
In the States.
Yeah. Because the Kindle, when we read it for people that read it on on the Kindle for Book Club don't seem to remember it as well.
Really?
As if they've read it on a...
Interesting.
Yeah.
Also, I can't read it by the pool or in the beach.
Yeah.
Even Kindle White, Paperwhite thing doesn't work, and I've got an iPad, so, I can't read that. So
with the glare and everything.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, Tiff, how do people get in contact with you if they want to find out about events or catering or treasure hunts?
Well, I would love them to, just even for a chat. I don't do pushy, I don't do hard sell at all. So my website is tbaevents.com. If you want to email me, it's Tiffany, F-A-N-Y, at tbaevents.com, or call me. The phone number's on the website.
Super. So can you close us out with your mantra, your way of living?
I think what goes around comes around. The harder you work, the luckier you get. And pay it forward. Be kind to people.
That is beautiful. Well, Tiffany Butler, TBA Events, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Antonia.
Please don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, review it and share it with your friends.